Hello friends, this is Mohit Khatri. In this video, we will learn about how to insert, update, delete and select the data from a table in the SQL Server. So let's start learning it. So how you can select the data from a table in the SQL Server. So in the previous video, we have already created a table in a newly created database. So if you have not viewed my previous video, I recommend please go and check my video where we have created a database and created a table inside the database. So in this video, we will learn about how to select, insert, update and delete the data from this table. So if I right click on this table, so you can see there is an option called select top 1000 rows. So when I choose this option, so it will automatically write down the query for you, and where you can see the query is selecting the top 1000 records, all the fields name from this table, user table. And currently we can see there is empty rows because there is no data inserted in this table. So this is the reason it is showing empty results. So now we will see how we can insert the data in this table. So for this we have to write down the insert query. So let me write down insert into table name. So we can just write down the table name here, and then the parenthesis where we need to write down all the columns where we are inserting the data. So in the user table, we have added these columns: ID, first name, last name, email, phone number, and password. So let me add these columns here. I will not take the ID column because ID is the primary key column. So we have set this column auto incremented. So that means when I'm inserting the data in the other columns, so this ID column will be automatically getting the ID by taking the plus one from the previously inserted row. So I will show you how that works. But let's start first inserting the data into the other fields. So let me write down the column names here. The first name, last name, email, phone number, password. Yeah. So these are the columns where we have to insert the data into this table. And now what will be the values? You can write down values. You don't need to put this line break. I'm just inserting so that you can properly view it. Just you need to put the space. So the values where now you need to write down all the values which we have to add in these columns. The first name say John, Albert is the last name. Now the email is john at the rate test.com. The phone number is integer, so we have to add the integer value. Say for example, this is the value 10 digit number, any 10 digit number the user will be inserting. The password is again the n varchar. Now to insert the data, I can simply select this query and click on the execute button, or I can press the F5 key, which will insert this data into the user table. But before executing this query, so I can see there is one problem which may occur, which is the phone number column. Phone number is I have taken as an integer, but the value which we are inserting, that is a longer than the value which integer can support. So that's why we need to change the data type of the phone number from integer to big integer, so where we can add the more digits into this column. So for that reason we need to change the data type of this phone number so that we can enter the more digits in this column. So how to change the data type of any column? So we need to write down the alter query. So which is alter table, then the table name, then alter column, column name, and then the new data type which we want to change, which is a big int in our case, and that's it. This is the query which will alter this table and this column with this data type. So now if I will execute this query, and we will be able to see that phone number will be changed with the data type of big int, where we can enter the big integer values in this column. So let me execute this query. So now we can see this is completed successfully. Now if I will come here and refresh, and here we can see the phone number is now supporting the big int data type. So now if I will execute this insert query, so this phone number will be inserted into this phone number column. So now let me select this insert query and I will execute. So the one row is affected. If select, I will select again this query which is for the selection of the data from this table and execute again. So we can see that data is successfully inserted into the user table, where we can see all the information which we have entered. The first name John, last name Albert, the email, the phone number and the password. And you can see the ID field which we have not added in the script in the SQL query. It is automatically added by the SQL Server. The reason is because this ID column is the primary key and we have set this as a auto increment. That means whenever we are entering any information in the other fields, so this field will automatically take the value by incrementing the plus one from the previous row. So this is the first row. That's why it is taking as the value as 1. So now if I will just insert one more record, say like Mark Hasan, say mark at the rate test.com, any other phone number, mark at the rate 123. If I will just select this query and execute, so one row is affected, that means insertion is successful. And now if I go up and then select this query which is for the selection from the table, so now we can see the one more record is inserted into this table, which is the mark information. Mark is the first name, the last name of it, email, phone number, this 88, and the password. And then you can see the ID column is automatically populated with the plus 1 with the previously inserted row. So previous row was 1. So now the next row is inserted with the value of 2. So this is how the insertion works. So we can simply write down the query, insert into table name, then parenthesis. We can add the column where we want to insert the data and then the values. I would like to show you quick one example where if I'm not interested to add the data into few of the columns. But always remember, wherever we have set the data, like when we are setting, there is an option called allow nulls, which we have seen in the previous video. So if like column is allowing null, then only we can set the null into those columns. Otherwise, those columns are mandatory. Say here in this user table, first name is not allowing the null. So first name is mandatory. So we cannot leave it empty. But last name is allowing the null. So if I'm trying to insert one more data and if I will remove this last name, and email is again not null, we have to add it. Phone number is null, so it is again my choice if I will remove it from here. The password is not null, so we have to enter it. So for this I will add the one more data with these columns which are mandatory in the user table, that columns of which are allowing the nulls, so we can consider them empty if we don't want to insert the data. So now let insert the data into the columns which does not allow null. So like the first name is Steve. Like here I will insert last name is not there. So I will just insert email of Steve. Phone number I have taken out. This is allowing the null. The password I'm inserting anything like the Steve at the rate 123. So now if I will select this query and click on execute, so the row is affected. So that means insertion is successful. So now if I will select again the data from this table, here you can see that the third row is inserted successfully where the ID is incremented by 1, but the last name and phone number is inserted with as the value of null. So this is not the value, this is because the field is allowing the null. So in that case, if we are not inserting any data into those fields, so that value will be showing as null for those nullable field. So this is how the insertion works. We have seen with both the examples where the field type is nullable. We can set the null and also we can set the values in those nullable field also. And we have also seen how to select the data from the table. So next I would like to show you how you can update the data. Now take an example from the third row which we have just inserted for the Steve. Say in the insertion time I have inserted the first name, email and password, but later for requirement we have to insert the phone number also. For that we can use the update query. How you can update the data into any table? So the query is update table, then the table name, update table name, set. You have to now give the column name where we are updating the information, like the phone number is equal to, and then where you want to update. If I will execute this query, update table table name, and then set column name is equal to any value. If I will execute this query, what will happen? All the information in all the rows of this table will be updated with the phone number of this, like 10 times 7. But we want to update this phone number to particularly to this row where like the Steve information is present. So for this we have to use the where clause. So update table name, set column name equal to value where, and you can filter it by any unique column which is more better always, like the email if it is unique, but we have not set it unique so I will not depend on it. So but the ID is a primary key which is always unique, so I will take that where ID is equal to 3. Now if I will execute this query will update the phone number into the Steve record as this value which we are updating in the phone number. Let me select this update query and click on execute. So one row affected, that means update is successful. Now I will just go up again and then select this query to get the data from user table. So see, we can see that Steve record is now having the phone number updated to 10 times 7. So this is how the update works in the SQL server. So and this is the query to update the data. So far we have seen how to insert the data, how to select the data, how to update the data in the table. Last thing is we have to see how we can delete the data. Now, if someone wants to delete any record, say for example, I want to delete the information for the mark from the table. So for this, I can write down the query delete from table name. So I would like to tell you first, if I don't add the where clause here, what will happen? It will delete all the rows from this table. Okay, but we want to just delete the information from for the mark, the second row. So for this we need to add the where clause, which is like delete from table name where id is equal to 2. So if I will execute this query, this will delete the information for the mark. So let me execute. One row affected, deletion is successful. Now if I go up and select from table name, from table query again, so we can see only the two rows are there because that in the second row we have deleted already. So this is all about this video where we have seen how to insert, update, delete and select the data from a table in the SQL Server. If you have any question or any query, please write down into comments. We are more than happy to help you. Thank you for listening the video. We will come back with our next video where we will learn about how we can connect the database with the ASP.NET project in the real time. Thank you.